Días atrás estuvieron en Buenos Aires Omar Fara y Raja Bala, expertos en derechos humanos, expertos de organizaciones especializadas en derechos humanos, y estuvieron en un seminario organizado por la Universidad de Itela y el Centro de Estudios Legales y Sociales, el CELS, para hablar de Guantánamo hoy. Los entrevistamos y nos dijeron esto.
I work at the Center for Constitutional Rights, which is a human rights organization in New York, and we regularly travel to Guantanamo. In fact, every month there's usually someone from my office at Guantanamo. So I spent the last week there meeting with my clients, and it's fair to say that the situation there remains very desperate. There are 61 prisoners remaining there. Most of them have been held nearly 15 years now without charge and without trial. And the prospect that they will ever leave the prison is really an open question now. So the circumstances remain very difficult at the prison.
What happened with the promise of Barack Obama to change the police?
It's been a tremendous disappointment. When the president came into office now almost 8 years ago, it seems like ancient history, we thought that we were rapidly coming to the end of Guantanamo. But I think it's fair to say that the president has not always shown a full commitment to living up to that promise, and the other elements, the other institutions in the U.S. government, the courts and the legislative branch, have all, I think, failed on Guantanamo policy. I desperately hope it doesn't come down to the next president to resolve this matter. This has been a human rights crisis pending now for a decade and a half. And the president, even though it's very late, still has 4.5 months roughly to try and correct this injustice. The next president, I think, will have very little incentive to focus on this issue now that there are so few prisoners remaining. It's clear that there are at least some still within the Obama administration itself that have a commitment to keeping open Guantanamo as a system of indefinite detention without charge or trial for dealing with the security concerns. In fact, I think it's clear that there are some in the Department of Defense who see it as an important part of the American response to terrorism, but the fact remains that Guantanamo was built outside of our constitutional system, outside of a system of international human rights, and there's no way to bring it back within that regime. It has to be closed in order to uphold our basic constitutional principles and commitments to justice.
How many clients have you got in Guantanamo?
Right now I have 3 clients who are there. I have 3 clients who were released within this year. One of the clients who was released was a man. When he arrived at Guantanamo, he was a boy, just 17 years old, and he finally was released at age 31. He was never charged with a crime. He was cleared to be released from Guantanamo by President Bush. Then he was cleared again by President Obama, and he waited 14 years for successive administrations to do the very thing that they already promised that they would do to him. So if you can imagine spending roughly a third of your life or more in Guantanamo just waiting for this policy to be resolved. The conditions at Guantanamo remain very, very difficult. Guantanamo is built to model a supermax style prison, even though the prisoners there have more communal living than most prisoners in a supermax conditions in the United States. It's still a very, very difficult conditions of confinement, especially because unlike a conventional prison, these are men who have never been charged with a crime, and the allegations against them are classified, which means many of them don't even know the full reason why the U.S. government is holding them there. It's a surreal kind of psychological torture.
Transfers, and we closed the prison at Guantanamo Bay.
The next president could close Guantanamo or not? That is like a dream.
If at the end of President Obama's term in office he's unable to close Guantanamo, we absolutely need the next administration to close it. Otherwise, we are risking facing a permanent feature of counterterrorism policy, not only with Guantanamo, but with indefinite detention, torture, military trials, and everything that Guantanamo represents. I think Americans are largely still trying to understand what this experiment since 9/11 has been. Guantanamo, I think for a lot of Americans, is sort of a mysterious, out of sight, out of mind type of issue, but I think for many of us who have been following Guantanamo over the years, for the world, it's a symbol of an America that does not respect the rule of law. So, many of the Americans that I've talked to, many folks in the military, in Congress, throughout all different parts of society, believe that Guantanamo should be closed and should be closed as soon as possible. There's no question that the recent terrorist attacks are going to pose additional challenges for efforts to close Guantanamo and reform the policies that Guantanamo represents. There is a real sense, I think, among the American people and among the broader global community that there needs to be a strong response to terrorism, and many falsely believe that that response needs to include gross human rights violations such as indefinite detention, torture, the use of military trials and other extraordinary measures that in reality do not keep us safe. It's interesting that many military leaders, including the American military, believe Guantanamo should be closed, and that's because Guantanamo serves as a recruiting tool for extremists and terrorists, and it makes it difficult for the United States to work with allies to stop terrorism. So it's actually going to be helpful in the fight against terrorism in the long run if we can close Guantanamo as quickly as possible.
Casi 800 personas pasaron por Guantánamo, hoy quedan 61, decía uno de los expertos, también abogado. El presidente Obama, cuando asumió, dijo que iba a cerrar Guantánamo, no la cerró, nada indica realmente que vaya a hacerlo ahora en el tiempo que le queda de acá al 8 de noviembre. ¿Qué pasa, José? ¿No tienen margen de maniobra los presidentes en Estados Unidos para tener una decisión y no poder ejecutarla?
A mí me parece, Inde, que a pesar de que evidentemente el presidente de Estados Unidos es la persona más poderosa del mundo, dice, ¿quién tiene más poder en el mundo? El presidente de Estados Unidos. Evidentemente hay cosas que puede hacer y cosas que no quiere, que no puede hacer.
Que no quiere.
Ahí el furcio está funcionando porque esa era la sutileza que quería marcar o la distinción que quería marcar. Sí. No está claro hasta qué punto Obama verdaderamente quería avanzar con el cierre total de Guantánamo y hasta qué punto no. Es cierto que disminuyó la cantidad de prisioneros totales. Yo pensaba, se me ocurren pocos puntos que afecten tanto el poder blando de Estados Unidos, es decir, la capacidad de Estados Unidos de persuadir al resto del mundo y de vender su democracia liberal y su sueño americano, que Guantánamo, que es un punto negro, un punto oscuro y al mismo tiempo, como decía uno de los abogados que entrevistamos, cómo también afecta la misma lucha contra el terrorismo. Digo, un país que practica el terrorismo a 20 millas o a 70 millas de su propia frontera, digamos, que practica el terrorismo de Estado, el sentido más básico de la palabra, un Estado que se clandestiniza, sí, para detener gente de manera ilegal y dejarlo, que yo 10, 15 años presos sin formularle cargos, sin formularle derecho a la defensa, etcétera. Entonces, ¿hasta qué punto, y esto yo lo formulo más como una pregunta que como una afirmación, digamos, ¿hasta qué punto los presidentes norteamericanos quieren y hasta qué punto los presidentes norteamericanos pueden terminar con este tipo de cuestiones?
Jorge, ahora, estamos hablando de abusos a los derechos humanos inconcebibles en una democracia. Es un programa hoy en donde estamos hablando de los agujeros negros de las distintas democracias. ¿Cómo lo ves vos, que además conocés bien lo que es la sociedad en Estados Unidos, además de conocer a la clase política?
Se lo llama gitmo esto, en la jerga del Congreso de los Estados Unidos es Guantánamo. Gitmo es lo que representa a Guantánamo. Guantánamo en este momento representa un gran dilema. ¿Por qué? Porque en febrero de 2015, tanto Obama como Bush, el que abrió este limbo legal, dijeron hay que cerrar Guantánamo. Y fueron al Congreso, y en el Congreso le dijeron no se cierra, porque por temor a que esa gente venga a los Estados Unidos y cometa atentados. ¿Cómo está el patio hoy? El patio hoy está en campaña electoral. En esa campaña electoral Hillary Clinton dice, sí, hay que cerrar Guantánamo, nos cueste lo que nos cueste. Y Donald Trump dice no, se pone en la posición de los republicanos del Congreso, dice no quiero gastar un peso para cerrar Guantánamo e indemnizar a esta gente, que este es el punto también, indemnizar a aquellos que han estado allí en ese limbo legal. Así que la discusión continúa y más allá de que Joe Biden, el vicepresidente de los Estados Unidos, haya dicho antes del final del mandato, en enero, se cierra Guantánamo, es el Congreso el que tiene la última palabra.
Estamos en la edición internacional del noticiero de la televisión pública hasta las 14. Nos estamos yendo a una pausa ahora, pero usted quédese ahí.
Exactamente, y le adelantamos el tema que vamos a desarrollar en el próximo bloque. Ataque en Paraguay. El asesinato en una emboscada de 8 militares puso nuevamente en relieve la presunta actividad de la organización armada Ejército del Pueblo Paraguayo. Todos los detalles luego de la pausa, ya volvemos.